After days of riding through open desert and narrow canyons, Daniel and Emily finally reached another town. From a distance, it looked alive. Horses tied to posts, people moving through the streets, smoke rising from chimneys. But the moment Daniel saw the wooden sign at the edge of the road, his expression changed. Red Creek. Emily noticed immediately. "You know this place, don't you?" she asked softly. Daniel slowed his horse. "This town knows me." Whether it wants to or not, years ago Red Creek had been Daniel's home. He had worked honestly, protected travelers, and earned respect until one night when money disappeared from the town safe. Without proof, without a fair hearing, the blame fell on him. He was driven out in shame, forced to become a wanderer. As they rode into town, conversation stopped. People stared. Some recognized him. Others sensed trouble. At the saloon entrance stood an older sheriff, his face lined with age and regret. His eyes widened. "Daniel Carter," the sheriff said quietly. "I never thought I'd see you again." Emily looked between them. "Who is he?" "The only man here who ever knew the truth," Daniel replied. Red Creek was no longer the town Daniel remembered. Fear ruled the streets now. A powerful man named Caleb Moore controlled everything: land, trade, and even the law, using hired bandits to silence anyone who resisted. Daniel realized something the moment he stepped into the dust-covered street. He hadn't returned by accident. The past had pulled him back for a reason. Caleb Moore ruled Red Creek without firing a single shot. Fear did the work for him. Shops stayed quiet. Doors closed early and people kept their eyes down. Daniel could feel the town watching him, waiting. That night he spoke to Emily outside the stable. "I spent years running from this place," he said, "but I can't do it again. Not now." Emily stepped closer and took his hand. "You're not running anymore, and you're not alone." Word spread quickly that Daniel Carter had returned. Caleb heard it too. By lantern light, Daniel gathered the townspeople. He told them everything: the false accusation, the stolen money, the lies that destroyed his name. At first people hesitated. Then one by one they began to remember. Doubt turned into anger. That was when the sound of horses echoed down the street. Caleb arrived with armed men. He dismounted slowly, smiling. "Red Creek doesn't belong to you anymore," he said to Daniel. "It belongs to me." Gunfire exploded. The quiet town became chaos. Daniel fought with purpose, protecting people instead of running. Townsmen joined him. Windows shattered. Dust and smoke filled the air. In the middle of it all, Emily moved from person to person, helping the wounded, refusing to hide. Her courage gave others strength. The final confrontation happened in the open street. Daniel and Caleb faced each other alone. "You stole my life," Daniel said. Caleb laughed. "And tonight I'll take what's left." One shot rang out. When the smoke cleared, Caleb lay defeated. The town stood silent, then free. Morning light washed over Red Creek. The streets were damaged, but the fear was gone. The townspeople gathered around Daniel. The sheriff stepped forward. "This town owes you more than an apology," he said. "Stay, help us rebuild, be part of Red Creek again." Daniel looked around, the faces, the broken buildings, the future waiting to be shaped. Then he looked at Emily. She smiled gently. "You spent your life riding from place to place," she said. "Maybe this road ends where something new begins." Daniel finally understood. Freedom wasn't always found on the open trail. Sometimes it was found by choosing to stay. They remained in Red Creek. Daniel helped restore order and protect travelers. Emily opened her heart to the town, teaching children, caring for families, and welcoming lost souls just as she once had been. At sunset, they rode outside town, not to escape, but to look back. The desert stretched endlessly behind them. Ahead was a life they had chosen together, and in the stories whispered across the Wild West. Their names lived on, not as runaways, but as people who faced the past and built a future. The first months in Red Creek passed quietly, almost deceptively so. For a man like Daniel Carter, quiet had always felt unfamiliar. His life had been shaped by motion, dusty trails, restless nights, towns that never asked him to stay. But now every morning began the same way. The sound of the town waking up, boots on wooden porches, horses shifting in their stables, and the smell of coffee drifting through the air. Red Creek was healing. New boards replaced broken windows. The saloon reopened, its laughter cautious at first, then genuine. Travelers began stopping again. drawn by rumors that the town was safe, protected not by fear, but by people who stood together. Daniel had taken on the role he never imagined for himself. He wasn't sheriff, not officially, but everyone looked to him. When disputes arose, they came to Daniel. When strangers arrived, they watched how Daniel greeted them. His presence alone was enough to keep trouble at bay. Emily noticed the change in him before anyone else did. "You're different," she said one evening as they walked along the edge of town, where the desert met the last line of wooden fences. Daniel smiled faintly. "Different how?" "You're not looking over your shoulder anymore." He stopped walking. The desert wind brushed against his coat, carrying the familiar scent of dust and sage. For years he had lived as if something were always chasing him, his past, his mistakes, his name. Now for the first time the weight had lifted. "I didn't realize how tired I was," he admitted. Emily slipped her hand into his. "You don't have to run anymore." But the Wild West never allowed peace to last without a price. Whispers of trouble. It began with rumors. A trader passing through spoke of burned wagons to the south. Another mentioned a group of armed men seen near the old silver routes. At first, Daniel dismissed it. Bandits came and went like desert storms. Then one morning, a wounded rider collapsed near the town entrance. He was barely conscious, his clothes torn, his horse exhausted. Daniel and the sheriff carried him into the saloon and laid him down. Emily worked quickly, cleaning wounds and offering water. The man's eyes fluttered open. "They're coming," he whispered. Daniel leaned closer. "Who's coming?" The rider swallowed hard. "Men flying black flags. They don't rob towns. They erase them." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stood outside his home, staring at the dark horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, silent but watchful. Somewhere beyond that darkness something was moving, and it was moving toward Red Creek. The Black Flag Riders. 3 days later, the truth arrived. A young boy rode into town at full speed, shouting before his horse even stopped. "They're here." Not far, maybe half a day's ride. Panic spread quickly. Women gathered children. Men reached for rifles that hadn't been touched in years. Daniel raised his voice. "Everyone listen." The town quieted. "We don't know exactly who they are or how many," he said calmly, "but fear is what they want. And fear is the one thing we won't give them." The sheriff stepped forward. "Daniel's right. This town stood together once. We'll do it again." Emily moved among the people, steady and composed. Her calm presence grounded them. Later, when the town was preparing defenses, barricades, lookout posts, safe shelters, Emily found Daniel alone near the stables. "You're thinking of leaving," she said. Daniel didn't deny it. "If they're after me, if this is because of my past," she interrupted him gently but firmly. "You didn't bring this storm. You're the reason Red Creek can survive it." He looked at her, searching her face. "What if I fail?" Emily placed her hands on his chest, right over his heart. "Then we face it together." For the first time since trouble returned to his life, Daniel felt something stronger than fear. Resolve. The first clash. At dawn, dust rose on the horizon. Through a spyglass, Daniel counted them. 20 riders, maybe more. They rode in perfect formation, black cloth tied to their arms, faces hidden beneath scarves. No laughter, no wasted movement. These weren't ordinary bandits. Daniel organized the defense quickly. Marksmen on rooftops, others positioned behind wagons and fences. The sheriff took the center. Daniel moved where he was needed most. Emily stayed near the makeshift infirmary, though every part of her wanted to stand beside Daniel. The riders stopped just outside rifle range. Their leader rode forward alone. He removed his scarf just enough to speak. "This town shelters a man named Daniel Carter," he called out. "Hand him over and we leave. Refuse and Red Creek disappears." Silence fell. Daniel stepped forward. "No," he said simply. The leader's eyes narrowed. "You choose death for everyone?" Daniel's voice didn't waver. "I choose a future where we don't kneel." The leader raised his hand. The desert exploded. Gunfire echoed across Red Creek. Bullets tore through wood and stone. Horses screamed. Smoke filled the streets. Daniel fought with precision, moving from cover to cover. He wasn't reckless, but he was relentless. Every shot mattered. Inside the infirmary, Emily worked without stopping. Blood stained her hands, her dress, the floor. But she never hesitated. When fear threatened to take hold, she remembered Daniel's words. "We don't kneel." a costly victory. The battle lasted less than an hour, but it felt like a lifetime. When the riders finally retreated, leaving bodies and broken weapons behind, Red Creek still stood. But victory had a cost. Several townsmen were injured. One didn't survive. Daniel stood at the edge of town, watching the dust settle where the riders had disappeared. His jaw was tight, his eyes distant. Emily joined him quietly. "They'll be back," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "But so will we." That night the town gathered, not to celebrate, but to remember. Candles burned low as names were spoken aloud. Daniel felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders again. But this time it didn't crush him. Emily squeezed his hand. "You're not alone anymore," she reminded him. And for the first time, Daniel believed it completely. The choice ahead. Days later, another rider arrived, this one bearing a different kind of news. He brought word of a larger force gathering far to the west. A coalition of towns was forming, preparing to stand against the Black Flag Riders once and for all. "They're asking for leaders," the messenger said. "Men others will follow." All eyes turned to Daniel. That night, Daniel and Emily sat together beneath the open sky. Stars scattered like silver across the darkness. "If I go," Daniel said slowly, "it won't be a short fight." Emily rested her head against his shoulder. "The road chose you again." He looked down at her. "Would you come with me?" She smiled, eyes shining. "I didn't survive this world to stay behind." Daniel laughed softly for the first time in days. Then, as the desert wind carried the promise of another long journey, Daniel Carter made his choice. Not to run, not to hide, but to ride forward, toward the storm beyond the horizon.